This dispute started when the Bishop of Constantinople, Nestorius, started objecting to the Virgin Mary being given the title of Theotokos, translated as God-bearer or Mother of God. He denied that Mary had given birth to the divine Logos, who had existed before the creation of the universe, saying it was not possible that a human could give birth to God. Nestorius said that Jesus was born only a human, and that the divine Logos, the second person of the Trinity, replaced his human soul at some point, possibly at his baptism. Nestorius was opposed by Cyril, the Archbishop of Alexandria. He said that Nestorius had made Christ into a combination of two persons, one human and one divine. Nestorius had made Christ less than a man because he no longer had a human soul. Cyril won the support of the Pope of Rome, Celestine I. Convinced he was right, Nestorius persuaded the Emperor Theodosius II to call an ecumenical council. It was to be held in Ephesus, where the term Theotokos, Mother of God, was widely used. This site corresponds to the modern-day city of Selçuk, on the southern coast of Turkey. Ephesus had been evangelized by St. Paul and St. John the Apostle. Some 250 bishops made the journey to Ephesus. They heard Pope Celestine's statement favouring Cyril over Nestorius, and judged it to be correct. The council also reaffirmed the Nicene Creed, and declared that it may never be amended, a fact which was pointed out centuries later when the Roman Catholic Church added the Filioque clause. The council upheld the term Theotokos as appropriate for the Virgin Mary. It confirmed that Christ is one person, not two, yet possessing both a human and a divine nature. Christ is not an amalgam of God and man. He is not part God, part man, like the Greek demigods. Rather, he is fully God and fully man. Nestorius was exiled to Upper Egypt, where he lived until 450, defending his position until the end. Many of his supporters moved east to Persia, outside the jurisdiction of the Roman Empire. Many of the churches in that area, modern-day Iraq and Iran, are still Nestorian. They are sometimes known as the Church of the East. The church later split into various denominations, with one section restoring its communion with Rome. This site corresponds to modern-day Kadıköy in Turkey, just over the Bosphorus from Constantinople. It was the largest of the ecumenical councils, comprising 520 bishops. It started with a monk from Constantinople called Eutyches, who was trying to counter Nestorianism. In an effort to oppose Nestorius' division of Christ into two, Eutyches went to the opposite extreme of emphasizing the oneness of Christ. To do this, he argued that Christ had only one nature, contradicting the Council of Ephesus. He said that Christ had two natures before the Incarnation, but that these merged into one nature when Christ was born as a human. Another council was held at Ephesus in 448 to discuss the matter. It was presided over by Dioscorus, who had followed Cyril as Archbishop of Alexandria. Like Cyril, Dioscorus vigorously opposed Nestorius' division of Christ into two persons. He supported Eutyches and his theology of one nature of Christ. Dioscorus refused to requests from the representatives of Pope Leo to read out his statement, later known as the Tome of Leo. He knew full well it contradicted his own position. Dioscorus also called for the Bishop of Constantinople, Flavian, to be deposed for teaching that Christ had two natures. When Flavian and his supporters objected, Dioscorus summoned a mob into the church, who proceeded to beat Flavian to death. The Council of Ephesus was deemed a synod of robbers by Pope Leo of Rome. Things drifted for a few years until a new emperor, Marcian, ascended the throne. In 451 he convened a new council in Chalcedon, near his home city of Constantinople. Pope Leo had requested it be held in Rome, but the emperor insisted on staying closer to his home territory, which was being besieged by Attila the Hun. Before the council started, the emperor had Flavian's body brought back to Constantinople to be buried honourably. The point was well made, and Dioscorus was refused a seat at the council. He made matters even worse for himself by attempting to excommunicate the Pope. He was denied entry into the main body of the church where the council was held, and forced to sit in the nave. The remains of the church of St. Euphemia still exist. She had been martyred on this site in 303 under the persecution of the Emperor Diocletian. After having been tortured, she was put in the arena and killed by the animals. The council first discussed whether to issue a new creed, but it was noted that the Council of Ephesus had prohibited the creation of new creeds, so the idea was not taken forward. Having been denied a hearing several years earlier, Pope Leo's tome at last had an airing. It was generally accepted to be an excellent summary of the traditional faith. It rejected the notion that Christ has only one nature, and affirmed that he has two natures. He is fully God and fully man. He is co-equal and co-eternal with God the Father. And at the same time, he shares exactly the same nature as we humans. The only difference is that he did not sin. On the one hand, the two natures cannot be separated. That is, they do not exist independently. On the other hand, the two natures cannot be fused together to become one. As Pope Leo put it, the distinction of the natures is by no means taken away by the union, but rather the property of each nature is preserved. The two natures concur in one person, one and the same Son, and only begotten God. And so the theological issue was concluded. The Council also issued 30 canons concerning the organisation and discipline of the Church. They addressed issues such as marriage, monasticism, ordination, and synods. Canon 28 declares that the Patriarch of Constantinople has equal status with the Pope of Rome, but that canon has never been accepted by Rome. As for the unfortunate Dioscorus, he was exiled and died 3 years later. The council was rejected by Dioscorus's see, Alexandria, which split off to form the Coptic Church, today the majority Christian denomination in Egypt and Ethiopia. They are sometimes known as the non-Chalcedonians, or the Oriental Orthodox, or the Monophysites. They reject this latter name as an inaccurate description of their theology, preferring the term Miaphysite. For some of us, it is difficult to understand the distinction, as both terms seem to mean one nature. In modern times, they have stated their position as not a single nature, but one incarnate, united, divine human nature of the Word of God. To say only single nature would be to imply that Christ's human nature was absorbed in his divinity, as was taught by Eutyches. So, they reject the teachings of Eutyches, whose mistake was the cause of the council. Chalcedon was the last council generally recognized by Protestants. The different denominations vary as to which of the future councils they accept. It is not clear on what basis they accept some councils and reject others. What exactly was the moment when the Church was supposed to have forfeited its authority? And what do they claim the Church did to lose its authority? Did the Church cease to exist at this moment? Was it resurrected only with the advent of Luther or Calvin 1,000 years later? Christianity came to the British Isles in the 6th century. Do the Protestants deny the authority of those who brought it here? Do they claim that true Christianity only arrived on these shores with the advent of Henry VIII? As we shall see in the next video, in reality there is no reason to deny the continuity of the Church Councils.